Think back to when you were a child. Think about some of the science fiction movies and books you may have read or watched. Have you ever seen a piece of technology that came out more recently and thought, oh my gosh, they completely predicted what was going to happen? Well, today we're going to talk about how science fiction can help predict the future. Years ago, I realized that my concept of how science fiction influenced the future was all wrong. Let me share with you what I've learned. Also, we're going to look through some examples of ideas that started off as science fiction, but ended up in everyday technology use. Lastly, we're going to leave you with ideas on how you can influence the future. A little bit over a decade ago, I realized that my understanding of how science fiction impacted the future was all wrong. Like most people, I would see something, and then later on when it was invented, I was like, oh my gosh, they knew what was coming. It was like they predicted it. They already saw it. Well, the truth is, I was completely wrong. They didn't actually predict the future at all. They influenced it. They gave future technology creators ideas and even inspiration on things that they really wanted to come to fruition. Here are a few examples of items that started off as popular science fiction, but are now technologies that we use today. The video phone, voice command computers, space flight, augmented reality, virtual reality, airport body scanners, I know you love those as much as I do, and animal cloning. All of these concepts started off in science fiction movies, books, and even comic books, and then later on, sometimes decades later, came to fruition. Let's look at a few more examples, and we're going to get extremely specific. In 1927, the German sci-fi movie Metropolis had its first video phone. In 1976, the BBC radio broadcast Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy had a voice-operated computer system. And the 1990 film Total Recall had airport body scanners. Do you remember that part? I bet you don't. Looking at all of these different items that I just listed, I think you can see that it's not that the people who created this art actually had some type of line into the future, but after people saw it, they thought, I want a voice command computer. I want to be able to go through the airport and see someone see through my clothes in a scanner. Maybe not that one, but you get the point. Maybe they thought, animal cloning, that might be a great solution to solving global hunger issues. Speaking of animal cloning, you might know me as the resident futurist on season 2 of the Emmy-nominated show Life 2.0. We have an entire episode that's dedicated not only to animal cloning, but the fact that it's technically possible, but not quite legal or ethical, to clone humans as well. The point is that at some point in time, people either saw the art and they thought they wanted it to exist, or a problem or a friction point arose and our collective memory of this art told us, wait a minute, there's a solution that we can create. There's something that would solve this problem. And so science fiction is basically the wellspring from which we get our newest technology ideas. Let's pause for just a second. I would love for you to jump in the comments. Let me know, what is a science fiction idea that you've seen that you would love to see in reality? Or maybe there's something you've seen and you're like, whoa, I hope we never get this. So join us in the comments and let me know, what technology would you like to see that you've seen in science fiction? Not only does science fiction influence technology itself, but science fiction also shapes cultural perception. And so there are ideas that perhaps we wouldn't have been open to, but after seeing it repeatedly as a trope on science fiction, we start thinking, oh, maybe that's not so bad. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't see us eating Soylent Green anytime soon. My fellow millennials and my Gen Zs, you might have to Google that. That's not what we want. But there's many other ideas that it suggested that later on we adopted. For instance, think about one of the popular aesthetics right now we see in design, which is minimalism, oftentimes with all white. We saw how Apple adopted that years ago with the iPhone. These are all based on science fiction concepts of how humans would live in space. These are movies that came out in the 50s, and the 60s, and the 70s, and now we're actually modeling our homes after these spaceship type pods that we saw over 50 years ago. Notice how people that are fans of Star Wars or Star Trek oftentimes find themselves in alignment with the overarching themes and motives, as well as even the principles involved in the original productions. This is the impact of science fiction. It actually shapes how we look at the world and how we interact with each other. It helps us imagine the possibilities of a brighter future. If you want a fun activity, I'd love for you to get your juices flowing. Start thinking about how you would want the future to look. And then notice how hard it is for you to divorce your ideas of the future from things that you've already seen expressed in science fiction. You might be surprised to see just how much it's influenced your own thinking and sometimes our inability to be creative, because the creatives have already prescribed to us the ideal futures, or in some cases, the futures that we should be afraid of. Not only has science fiction influenced our cultural insights and how we look at many different advancements and even how we expect things to look in the future, but it's also embedded us with a certain level of fear. Have you noticed that when some new technology is announced, people automatically are afraid and they say things like, "I see how that's already played out"? So for instance, when you talk about animal cloning, when people started talking about that a little bit more openly, people attached that concept to Jurassic Park, saying, "Oh my gosh, I know where this is going." Or even now, it was recently announced that the first child was conceived using DNA from 3 adults. If you were to read the article, what you would find is that the child's DNA was not an even split between 3 people. This was not some type of Frankenchild. In fact, what they were doing is they were taking the DNA from one parent who was more likely to pass on certain genetic diseases to their children and replacing that with DNA from a healthier donor, which increased the likelihood of the child being born healthy without any type of maladies, and also ensuring the mother had a better chance at a healthy birth. However, many people didn't read the article. They just saw the title about the first child being born with DNA from 3 different people, and people immediately started talking about things they've seen in sci-fi movies and books and how it spells the end of society. So interesting enough, while science fiction gives us hope and a light in terms of what's possible, it's also programmed us with our own boogeymen. Now you understand that science fiction doesn't help predict the future, but instead it influences the future. I don't know if that's good news or bad news. Maybe it's a little disappointing, and it's probably even fun to imagine that these brilliant people, these brilliant creatives from decades ago already saw what was coming. But the truth of the matter is, that's not true. Unless we're talking about The Simpsons. They probably can't predict the future. Speaking of predicting the future, I do want you to be better prepared for your own future, and so I have a free gift to offer you. It is the Future Ready Playbook. It's a wonderful workbook that's full of all kinds of activities and worksheets that's going to have you thinking about the future a little bit differently, whether we're talking about your personal life, your career, or your business. To get a copy of it, go to the description of this video and click the link right now.